Introduce us.
Well,
Here we go. We're recording. Hey, boys and girls, it's elevating your voice with Chris and Marco. Today is Monday, April 20th, and John's here with his big bong in the background. We're gonna all get Cheech and Chong wasted. I'm kidding. Um,
no,
he
I
has
put it away. I put it away.
he put it away. He put the bong away. Marco was going down this path of conversation. I had to stop him because he was wasting golden moments. Um, so John, I'm going to tell you right now, your head's cut off a little bit, so you might want to scale back a little bit, or lift your thing because we don't want to cut your head off. Just for
There it is.
we don't want to cut your head off. So thank you.
There we go.
So Marco, now you can go back down that path of
Okay,
conversation you were having.
because I
Yeah, go ahead.
definitely want to go about
Yeah,
down that
go ahead.
path.
Restart it, buddy.
So, ballroom dancing. We heard from a little bird that you were involved in that. Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah, so I started doing Latin dance competitively a couple years ago. I started taking salsa lessons maybe it might have been like 4 years ago. It's sort of like as COVID days were Okay. winding down and the world was
Hmm.
opening up again, and I'm like, I just want to like be
Yeah.
around people
I just
again.
want to dance,
Yeah, like, well, because I'm not a dancer. I didn't
right?
grow up
Yeah.
in a dancing family. It wasn't like a thing that was like a part of like I had two left feet, that whole thing. So I'm just like, it would just be nice to like know how to
Hmm.
like do something
Yeah.
and kind of meet some different kind of people and just do something that kind of gets you out of your comfort zone. So I started doing that, and then after like a year, I went and watched a competitive Latin dance, and I was just
Hmm.
like, I felt a little jealous. And so I'm like, well, instead of being I jealous,
Yeah.
why love don't I it. just like learn how to do it
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
just sit there being like, wow, those guys are so cool. I could just
They
like
are.
be a cool guy too. So,
Mhm.
um, so I've been doing that with the same teachers, the same everything for 5 years,
Wow.
4 or 5 years or so.
Oh my
And
gosh.
and so that's been pretty great because like even like those guys, those teachers, like we're
Yeah.
more friends than we are anything else at this point. I've gone
Right.
camping with them.
Oh,
Like
nice.
they've invited me. They're Italian. They have a place in Italy, and they're like, if you're ever around, like just come stay with us. They go
Oh,
Yeah. for
cool.
2 weeks at a time. They're just like, why don't you just like come hang out in
Yeah.
Italy with us? So it's evolved to more than just dance, but the dance was certainly just like,
Yeah.
let's get out of the comfort zone. Let's do something a little bit,
Yeah.
a little
I,
bit scary.
I feel like salsa and like Caribbean dancing, salsa, merengue, bachata is is almost like football, soccer, where it's a lot of you when you go to these classes and you go to these dance floors or these, it's not just Latin American culture, but it's also like you get a variety of people that just love salsa, merengue,
hmm
bachata, um,
Isn't
which
matata
is
a drink? I thought matata
no,
was a
that's
drink.
that's horchata.
Matata,
Yeah, horchata.
horchata, horchata,
Well,
or
it's cool though,
horchata.
because like I learned how to play or I learned how to dance salsa. And that's the one I do socially most. And when I was in Spain, I've been to Spain a couple of times. The first time I went to Spain, I don't speak Spanish. Um, although for some reason they allowed me to get like a temporary driver's license. So I'm just driving around Spain with no understanding of the language. They're like, here
Awesome.
you go. Don't
That's
understand how
awesome.
that can be a thing, but it was cool because I found the little salsa clubs around Spain and I could just go and I don't know how to talk to them, but
Yeah.
I knew how to like dance with them.
Hey, it's the language of love, man.
So
There you go.
yeah, it worked out. So it's been fun. It's been
That's
Yeah,
fun.
great.
I can attest to that. Nikki and I did. We took a lot of dance lessons when it comes country swing. Not
Yeah.
Oh
everything's
yeah.
based on two-step country wise, and then we add
Yeah.
country swing to it.
hmm
Yeah.
You do. It is a culture. It is
Oh
just
For
yeah.
sure.
a little group of people that you just end up doing things with, and you all end up seeing each other at other country
Yeah,
bars
it's a
when you're
smaller
dancing and stuff.
community than you
Yeah,
think. When you start out, you're just like, wow, like just it seems like there's so many, it's so big, and then you just realize
yeah,
oh, it's like if
yeah.
I go out to the different places around town, the Dave and Buster's have Latin
Hmm.
nights, the
Uh-huh.
Fuse downtown, like you kind of just end up seeing a lot of the same people,
Yes,
Right.
and it's really cool because then you're just like you're kind of you're dancing with them again. You're
right.
building that relationship. It's not just a one-off. Where like when I was in Spain, it's just a one-off, which is
Mm,
Right.
also its own separate cool, but
yeah,
it all is also just sort of nice to just be around the community and kind of see some of those people and
yeah.
build some of those relationships too. And some a little bit of business has come out of that too. So
That's
I mean
good.
that doesn't hurt
There
either.
there you
That's
go,
good.
you
All
know.
right. I don't know how we're going to do any better than that. So thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Yep. Thanks for having me, guys.
See ya.
Well, let's start off from the beginning. John, talk to us a little bit about your real estate beginnings,
Yeah, why are
what
you
got you
here?
into it,
Mhm.
how,
The 30 floor elevator ride. You're
Yeah.
gonna dazzle us with your stuff, so go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so see, I moved out to Arizona in like 2013 or something like that, and I was going to ASU and I got a degree in
Mhm.
graphic information technology,
What the fuck
which
is that?
Wow.
exactly that it kind of means nothing.
Wow.
I always my way to make it sound like it means something is it's the marketing and advertising side of graphic design. So like
Oh,
I kind of learned how to like create brochures and how to work like, you know,
Hmm.
Photoshop kind of stuff and like do, but
Yeah.
I was not an expert at
okay.
advertising or an expert at marketing, but I kind of had like an overall idea
Right.
of how it worked.
Nice.
And I did some freelance work, but I was just like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to just like create logos for people and just like
Mhm.
Right.
work on their branding. I was like, I'd rather brand myself
Yeah,
and use that. I'm like, well, better place to kind of do that than in real estate because it's kind of half, if not more, of the battle is marketing, whether
so
it's
so
yourself
so you
or your listings.
so wait a minute. So you got into real estate because you wanted to brand yourself because that was your degree. That was your whole launching point in real estate.
It was like my degree had like once I graduated was sort of a dead end as
Right.
far as like getting a job. And I'm just like, well, like this is a great place to apply that. And I
That's
like
just that's just
real estate
that's
to begin with.
Yeah, that's like the coolest reason I've ever heard anybody get in real
Yeah.
estate. Like not
It just
because of the
it
money. Not, it's just I want to design my own brand. What's the best occupation to do that? Oh, real estate. One
yeah.
of the hardest freaking industries to get
Yeah.
into in the world. One of the
Well,
top, most stressful occupations in the world. I'm going to create a brand and be a
I'm gonna
realtor.
do my own thing. Yeah. Well,
That's
and
awesome.
I sold myself on the idea of like, I don't want to clock it. I did a lot of the clocking in, clocking out,
Yeah.
just be here at this time, be here at this time. If you want a
Yeah,
day off, you need to make sure you ask and cross your
right.
fingers that hopefully your boss gives it to you. And like,
Hmm.
I got so tired of that. So I was a little bit sold on the like, okay, like, yeah, building the own brand, but then also having your own agency over what you do.
Hmm.
Sure.
Um, Instead of, I was in some leadership type roles of the jobs I did before, but I'm like, I'd rather just focus on what I want to do instead of always having to run it by these
That's
people. And
cool.
again, like the clock in, clock out. So
Yeah.
just, I didn't really think about it until I graduated and was just in a moment of just like, what can I do with what I know?
Mm. Yeah.
Right.
And this sort of slotted in. So really, it was never, in fact, I think I was a little bit ignorant to the amount of money you can make in real estate. It really played no factor. It was just like, I need a job. I just
Right.
Yeah.
need to do something. And then, yeah, I got my license. I was working 40 hours at one job, 24 at another, and then getting my real estate license. That was at the time that you had to do it in person. So
Yeah.
you couldn't,
Oh,
like,
wow.
you used
Yeah.
to have to go in person
Right.
for your licensing classes.
I see. I
Now,
like that. When I got into this 27 years ago, I went and I did the 12-week class
hmm
course, I guess I should say. But I learn better in classroom than I do online.
yeah,
Online
yeah,
learning to me absolutely. That's why I'm struggling with the broker stuff, getting my
yeah,
broker's
Mhm.
license because I can't. I don't retain anything online. As soon as this is over, I forget the entire conversation.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
But
100%. I'm
it
kind of the same
sucks.
way. That's
Online learning
why,
sucks. That's one of the reasons why I like what Nick does with classes. Like we're having a class tonight because it's in person.
Right.
right.
It's learning. It's like you learn more, I think, in a classroom environment. I could be completely off base and everybody's yelling at the thing like, shut up, Chris. But I do. I just, to me, it's in person is so much better than online
hmm
with everything.
And it
J-
even like,
Even this would be better in person if we were
right,
all in the same room. You know, if we're all in
right,
the living room with Brokers Hub doing this, it would be better because we could feed off the energy a little bit more.
right.
No, Marco.
John, are you still pretty heavily involved in branding yourself and all that? I mean,
I've been kind of doing a bit of a rebranding of
Yeah,
things because like last year was a pretty slow year for me as it was for kind of for a lot of people and I
everybody.
took
Yeah,
my
yeah.
eye like
Mhm.
off the prize a little bit even more than some too. So I think it definitely was my worst year in 10 years or so.
mhm.
And so
Let me stop you and ask you a question about that because that's
yeah,
interesting to me. Because it's a slower year. We can all attest last year was slow, if not the year
yeah,
before as well. You took your eye off the prize, but it was a slower year. Like it was a slower year for me too, but I worked just as hard and hustled
yeah.
just and grinded just as hard. So and I'm not knocking you, but what made you kind of step back and not drive the way you normally drive because the year kind of dictated that it was not going to be as productive? Is that a make sense question?
No, for sure it does because
Okay,
that's
okay.
like I knew a lot of people that really doubled down or at least was doing the
Right.
same amount of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of the people like there's been a few people I've talked to that really actually killed it last year and they had a great
Mhm.
year.
Like
and they
Nick.
double down their efforts. And for me, it was just sort of like you kind of have those moments where you're getting distracted by all of life's other stuff. And you're just like, hey, I'll
Okay.
deal with this. Business is
Yeah.
slow and it kind of opens up the opportunity to be like, oh, let me focus my time and energy on this
Yeah.
instead.
Mm,
And you
Okay.
just really
Makes
like it was
sense.
so easy to kind of get distracted with those
right,
outside things that aren't as important as you think they are in the moment. You just have more time
Right.
to think about it.
right,
You know,
Right.
when you're busy, you're just like, okay, yeah, that sucks over there, but like it is what it is.
Yeah.
right,
But when you have the time because you don't have as much business, then at least my mind, it's just like, okay, I can go work on that thing. I can try to fix
Yeah.
this thing. It opened up the avenue for distraction.
yeah.
Okay.
And for me, that's like something I continuously always have to like try to keep myself in
That's
check
because
And
on.
you're like most realtors, you're ADHD.
Yeah.
well,
Yep.
and maybe that's why you're excuse me, you're rebranding yourself because maybe
Mhm.
you were able to step away from it, right?
That's a good point.
Get a fresh perspective,
For sure.
and then you're like, okay, now it's time to come back in. What do I want to do different, right? Because I think
Mhm.
some of us, when we're so busy, when we're in it and we're
Yeah.
just grinding,
Mhm.
we don't have that luxury of let me step back,
Mhm.
let's see what's working, what's not working.
Yeah,
Um,
it
and,
definitely made it very clear, like, hey, like like if you want a better year, don't keep doing the same things. There's some
right,
things I was doing that's great, and there's other things that, you just gotta you gotta find a good feedback loop to
Yeah.
yeah,
why was that working? Why wasn't that
right,
working? What can I change without just trying to overhaul everything
yeah,
overnight? Because like I've built a foundation of things, so it's not like I have to reinvent who I am. But I
right,
think it's more about clarifying and having a more unified like
right,
voice of what that is, so that because like a lot of my business has been repeat and referral,
Yep.
and so the marketing pitch, the branding hasn't mattered as much because
Right.
it's warm introductions. They already know you. I don't have to convince them, hey, I deserve 3%. They're just like, yeah, we've worked with you before. My cousin worked for you. My mom worked for you, whatever.
Yeah.
So I also got a little bit lazy on the branding side because I didn't really have to.
hmm
But then in order to like increase the size of my repeat and referral, I also need to get more outside people in. And
Mm.
that's where I was like, okay, yeah, like this next year is focusing just as much, if not more, on my repeat and referrals, but then also
right,
bringing new people into that. And so
yeah,
what does that look like? What's that like nice entry point for people to understand from the get-go who this guy is, who you get when you hire him, and how does this look for you to achieve,
yeah.
whatever it is you're trying to do. So
And
just
let,
trying to bring some clarity to it.
and let me ask both of you guys. I feel like, so I think naturally a lot of us try to recalibrate at the end of the year, heading into January, right? We set our intentions, we set our goals, but I think it might behoove us to also recalibrate maybe like in July, especially here in Arizona where things are a little bit slower, right? Because if you set your intentions in December and you've gone 6 months, it might be a good time to say, okay, for the last 6 months, this is what I intended to do in January. Has it worked? Has it not worked? Do I still want to do that? Right? Because I think, is this still a goal? A lot of us wait a whole year and be like, maybe this wasn't a real goal that I wanted. Maybe I thought I wanted it.
Right.
And then you just wasted a whole year focusing on this. I mean, what do you guys think about that as far as like recalibrating, maybe twice a year instead of just once a year?
I think you recalibrate monthly. I think everything you do today, I've had this mindset for a long time. Everything you do today affects what happens in 45 days,
Hmm.
Mm,
right? So if I write 3 blogs today, if I shoot 2 videos today, if I call 5 people today, those return on that I call income producing activity comes back within 45 days. So if you're doing some type of income producing activity every single day, regardless of what it is, regardless of the scale that it is, even if you just have one conversation with somebody that was a past client or is a pipeline client, that's still under the umbrella of income producing activity because you're touching
Yeah.
that person on some way, shape,
right.
or form. When I do my Facebook birthdays every morning, that's touching those, like today there's 12 birthdays in my thing. So that's touching those 12 people, even though it's not real estate related. I start with, hey, it's Chris Dunn, the real estate guy. So they know it's there. So to your point, Marco, I don't look at the year and say I'm going to do this year because every year's different. I just do the same thing every month and every day, and
Hmm.
then if and the year pans out how it pans out. Nick had something he
Yeah.
said earlier this year: you get the year that you deserve,
Hmm.
which is another great phrase from him because that goes back to what he's doing with 777. And you're in 777, right, John?
Right.
Because you got a listing out of it, right? So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you if you're doing all that, I want to talk about if you're doing all
And a
that
buyer
daily,
out of it
right?
too.
See,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're doing all that grinding with that. That's going to pay off not today, within 45 days, and even though the program is
Hmm.
7 weeks long, you're
Hmm.
going to see residual results from that well into the rest of the year if you're doing it consistently every day.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, I
now,
think,
yeah. So now you got to answer Marco's question. No
yeah.
pressure.
So like, I mean, and piggybacking on yours too, is just like shortening that feedback loop.
Yeah.
You can have, okay,
Mm.
so like this year I was just looking at last year as a whole. So it's like, okay, like I didn't want to get to December 31st, 2026, and then look back at December or look back at
Mm.
Right.
2026 as a whole.
Yeah.
And so just shortening the feedback loop so that change happens quicker without
Right.
just chasing change for change's sake too, because I do see like
Yes.
I see a lot of realtors fall into that category of like, they switch brokerages and they're like, hey, here's
Hmm.
my new thing. And then like
Yeah.
6 months later, it's like, hey, here's my new thing. Excited to be
Yeah.
over
Right.
here, excited to be over there. It's just like, okay, so like the
Yeah.
consistency as a consumer would scare me. So
Oh yeah.
you don't want to just be like, hey,
Right.
here's my new thing all the time. Here's my new branding. Here's
Right.
so that's why I like soft changing my branding and marketing stuff is like so it still aligns with everything else I've been
Yeah.
doing. But then yeah, to your point of like shortening that feedback loop, because I've actually had the mindset of more like quarterly, but I
Mhm.
actually think that monthly is probably, you know, more appropriate, especially
Right.
just in our market in our time. Just like
Right.
things are moving quickly.
Yeah.
So even 3 months down the line, um, a lot can happen in 3 months. And you could be doing a lot of wrong things in
Right.
three
Right.
months.
Well, and
Now
I
going
think
back.
you also have to like there's a fine line, right? There's a fine line of between like you have to let if if you have an initiative, right? I think you have to give it time to come to fruition, right? You have to
Hmm.
give it time to develop, right? If you just say, "Oh, I'm gonna post every day for 7 weeks," nothing happens, and then
Right.
you're that might be not long enough, right?
Well,
So you so
on that comment, Marco, I posted consistently. I posted reels on Instagram for 648 days. Okay,
right,
straight, consecutive. You know how
right,
much business I got out of it?
5 deals,
Not a damn thing. So it doesn't matter what you're posting or
right,
how much you post. Because my stuff was everything from real estate related to family related to non-business related to Nick and I related to little man related. Everything, every dynamic you could do. Right? There's this thing right now. Oh, I want to be a viral realtor. You don't want to be a viral realtor. You're not going to get business out of it.
right.
You have to figure out your niche. To John's point, find your brand and work on that brand. It's
Hmm.
not necessarily posting every day on Facebook and Instagram. And if you're posting the same thing on Facebook and Instagram, that's what you're doing. You're turning people off because most people follow you on both platforms. So if you're putting the same shit on both platforms, you're going to start losing people's interest. You start losing
Right,
followers because, well, he just posted that over there. Well, I'm going to watch it over here. So
right,
posting every day consistently doesn't necessarily get you business.
Mm.
It's going to showcase you. It's going to keep you top of mind. But if you approach it like you're going to get business out of it, I think that comes
yeah,
across as you're going fishing.
right,
Come follow me, follow me, follow me. But really, if you looked at my Instagram page, I had shit that was legit, really good content from an education standpoint and every other direction,
yeah,
and nothing. Now, did it keep me top of mind for people? Probably, but I did not get. Because I asked people how you found me, and not a single person in that almost a little over 2 years referenced Instagram.
yeah. Well, and I think of social media, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, or if it's just I think of social media. Me
Mm-hmm.
personally, think of social media as the new business card, right? If
It's
somebody's gonna,
social proofing. It's
Yeah,
people
yeah,
can go find you
yeah,
yeah,
and be like,
people,
yeah, he
people,
exists.
yeah.
He does this.
right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, and going back to branding,
Mm-hmm.
branding is not only, and John, you could probably attest to this. It's not only logo, colors, and everything. I mean, branding is how you carry yourself, how
Right.
you talk to people, how you dress,
Mm-hmm.
right? What
Mm.
car you drive. All, I
Hmm.
mean, we we live in a
It's
consumer
all the
society.
superficial shit that
Yeah,
everybody looks at.
it is. I
Yeah.
mean, whether we like it or not,
Right.
we are a brand.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
a
the
walking.
brand gets them in the door though, and
Yeah.
then what you do keeps them there. It's
Yeah.
just
Right.
like if
Oh,
you if
nice.
you're if
I
you're
love
like
that.
a you're selling cars at a dealership, they'll walk on the lot, but are they going to stay there and buy with you?
Right.
Like it's because you build that relationship. You have that opportunity. So setting up that opportunity to be handed off a little bit
Yeah.
more like
Yeah.
warm is going to go a lot better than just, being kind of all over the place or not really having a unique
Right.
vision for, hey, why you're here, but why should you stay?
Right.
Right.
Because you can attract people all day long and you can spend all the kind of money you want for like ads and just shotgun blast leads. I've been on a team where it
Mhm.
was just a shotgun blast of leads and
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, like this is garbage,
Yeah.
but it's
Thank
something.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are out there chasing leads, it's not leads you want to chase, it's escrows you want to chase. So when you get approached by the things, oh, we can give you, verified leads, $75 each. Go back to them and say, well, give me escrows.
Mhm.
Mm.
Give me a pipeline of escrows because leads don't mean shit. You can
Right.
talk to 100 leads, and of those 100 leads, only 10 are going to be actually ready, willing, and able buyers or sellers. But of those 10, only one's going to be able to do something today.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So I've kind of shifted that mindset with all those people that send that shit out. We all get it. Oh, leads, verified leads, this, that. I reply back to them. I don't
Yeah.
want leads, I want escrows. And they
Yeah.
stop because they don't know how to
Yeah.
respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get you leads all day long, man.
I know it's not hard. And then again, you can spend all
No.
the money you want, or you can just
Hmm.
you can get a lead anywhere you want. Like doesn't mean it's a good lead. You can walk down the street and
Right.
be like, hey, like I'm a real estate agent. Okay, that
Yeah.
person's now a lead? Not really.
No, exactly.
They talk to you for a second, but they have
Exactly.
no need, they have no
No.
desire. So
Yeah.
really
No.
queuing that up
Right.
is different than
Yeah.
just telling the Starbucks person at the
Hmm.
Yeah.
drive-through as you're getting your coffee, like,
Yeah.
hey, by the way, if you want to buy or sell a home, call me. Like
Right.
that's a lead, sure,
Right.
but like
Right. Exactly. So
they're never going to do
yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, hey,
So
hey, John.
yeah.
I've seen from the notes that you sent us. It looks like you really lean into Buffini. Uh,
Yeah, well, so
yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
I had two mentors when I first got into the industry. I was at Remax when I first got in, and I had two mentors and sort of this like mentorship program for your first 10 transactions.
Yep.
Your split's a little bit higher, and you have these two guys that, and I had no idea what I was doing, and they had different approaches. One was very Buffini, repeat and referral, and the other was a lot more like he got a lot of leads from SEO, just online stuff. And
Now,
then
what year was this? I want to put in context.
what year was this? This would have been 2016.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
2016.
Because
Um,
different SEO stuff, different lead gen back then than there is now.
Well, and his SEO is big on because he was a dual citizen, which is something I want to touch on too. But he was a dual citizen of Canada and United States. So
Yeah.
his SEO was built off of just finding that funnel of
Yeah.
Canadians
Sure.
and he was just his previous job was doing SEO for another company. So he just was
Hmm.
like, I'll just do SEO for myself.
Mm.
And so he was less relational. In fact, he would tell me because I actually formed a closer relationship with him. I'd go over to his house, we'd have parties, like we'd hang out, and he's like, I don't work with my friends. I won't list my friend's house. I won't sell my friends' homes. I don't want
Mm.
to do it. I don't want to mix that. I have enough business
Nice.
that I'd rather enjoy my life with my people and not have that weird blend of,
That's
okay, I'm going
cool.
to put my real estate hat on.
Yeah.
And then the other guy did strictly repeat and referral, basically only. And they
Right.
made about the same amount of money. They
Hmm.
did the same amount of transactions, roughly 30 to 50 a year.
Okay.
So, they're getting business. And so I learned from both. And then I joined the team of the repeat and referral guy as I graduated the little mentorship program and I
Right.
still want to kind of continue to kind of build that way and joined that. And he was a Buffini coach for a long time. In fact, I think when I was on the team, he was still a Buffini coach. He no longer does that, but then he was in the Buffini coaching system. So I liked it. I did a little bit of Buffini coaching myself too, but at the end of the day, I was like, it's a lot of money for things I already know.
Right.
So you're kind of paying for accountability, which is
Yeah.
nice, but
I
um,
did. I was Buffini. I did Buffini for a couple of years.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
great. You learn a lot, and it's
Mhm.
it's useful. And I was in the Tom Ferry ecosystem for a little bit
I did
too.
that for about 2, 3
Um,
years.
yeah, and I thought that was great. I picked up a lot of little nuggets here or there, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't need to go travel to Dallas every year for their
Right.
No.
summit conference, which is just a big platform to
Yeah.
sell the
See, and
coaching
I did it.
program. Like,
Yeah. I did it when Mike Perry was still handling
mm,
everything. So
yeah.
Tom to me is like, okay, you're scaling off your daddy's
He's never
success.
once sold a house in his life. At
No.
least Buffini
No.
was a real estate agent at
Right.
one point.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
did like that aspect a little bit more
Yeah.
than just, but I did learn stuff from the Tom Ferry ecosystem too.
Sure.
And again, it sort of was like the Buffini was the one mentor and the Tom Ferry was
Mm.
sort of the other mentor and just
Yeah.
blending those two things.
Mm.
Right.
But the thing I wanted to circle back to is when I said that he was a dual citizen. of Canada and United States. I remember him saying that, and I was like, wow, that's such a cool way that he found business. I'm not a dual citizen, so that doesn't apply. But I felt like, and I've used this bit of at least the talking point, and especially listing presentations where I'll say I'm a dual citizen of two different generations because
Oh,
I'm old enough to understand what the world was like before the internet, um,
hmm.
before cell phones, before
I love that.
I grew up with a rotary phone and a big long
Yeah,
cord like
yeah.
Napoleon
How old are
Dynamite. So it's
you?
just like I'm 39, turning 40
Okay,
this year.
okay.
Okay.
So like I just remember what the world was like when and I always say like when I had a crush on a girl in like high school or middle school or whatever, you kind
Yeah.
of had to like talk to
Knock on the
her.
door.
You had to
What a
ask
novel
her for the
idea,
phone
right?
number, and the phone number is like the house phone number, and you have to call the
Yep.
house. You don't
You
know
had a
who's going to
spit game.
answer. Like you had to be a person. And
Yeah.
so the older side of me was like, oh, I remember what it's like to like shake a hand and look somebody in the eye and talk to
Yeah.
them and like
Yep.
be vulnerable in a
Hmm.
way that the younger generation, maybe they don't sometimes. Um, but then being young enough to also leverage technology in a way and like to understand it's not
Hmm.
completely over my head
Yeah.
to leverage that for my clients. So I've used
Hmm.
that branding kind of like line of I'm a dual citizen of two generations, and why does that benefit
Yeah.
you? Well, I'll go knock on a door and I will slide dial these people.
Yeah.
And
And it's a very interesting topic that you're hitting on because I was at the board of directors spring conference on Friday, and they had their caucus, and one of the topics that they wanted to do on the AAR podcast was, well, it's kind of like a dilemma. How do we get a lot of these younger realtors to connect with these boomers,
mm,
right? Because there is a generational gap in
Mhm.
technology, right? And how communication is done, right? I mean,
hmm
obviously, boomer to boomer, it's very easy because they have the same experiences of growing up. But like, a younger realtor, how are they going to connect with this generation, right? Um, and so I think to your point, it's yeah, it's great that you use that as leverage, saying, "Hey, look, I'm multilingual,
you get the best of both worlds.
I'm
Yeah.
generational. I can communicate with both sides, right?
hmm
Because as we know, it's you never know who's gonna buy a house, right?
Right.
They you just never know who's going to love that house, right? And you have to be able to communicate with that.
Well, a lot of my business starting out was actually in Sun City because my office was on the west side and I
Mhm.
didn't have a lot of business. I didn't have a lot of connections here because I didn't grow up here. And so I was doing a lot of door knocking. My very
Mhm.
first listing ever was a FISBO because
Nice.
I'd find every single
Mhm.
FISBO and I wouldn't get the phone number and call them. I would drive to every single FISBO house and I would knock on that door and
Nice.
the Sun City people were more willing to talk to me just
Yep.
because they're
They're
retired and they
old.
have time and they
Yep.
would love to talk to
Hmm.
somebody who reminds them of their grandkid.
Yep.
So like,
Mhm.
but that one took time. It wasn't I just walked, knocked on the door, talked to him, and was like, "Hey, you should list with me." I'd never even closed a single transaction at that point. I'm just trying to find people.
But
Uh,
yeah, but you started out farming, which is lost
hmm
in today's world
Mhm.
because that's how I started my business. I picked a
hmm
neighborhood and farmed it
hmm
every
Mhm.
Saturday. So doing that
Mhm.
is a great foundation for what we have to do because it gets rid of all the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, do you think the older generation looks for younger realtors because they have that hustle?
I mean, probably. I think both sides are looking. That's why, like, to answer your question before of like, how does the younger generation connect as well too? Is just having mentorship, but the mentorship can go both ways.
Hmm.
Like the old people can learn from the young people can learn from the old people, um, and then just somewhere in between too. But just because you're older doesn't mean you're less tech savvy either.
Right.
Right.
But with
Because
age comes experience, and those people in those 55 plus communities, I think will kind of lean towards the experience more than technology
hmm
because they don't understand the technology.
hmm
They see it, they're afraid of it. AI scares the hell out of a lot of people. So
right.
they're not going to care if you're a viral realtor. They're not going to care
Well,
if you
that's
have
what, yeah,
TikTok,
exactly.
Instagram,
So like
Facebook.
if
Right.
you're gonna show up and be like, hey, like look at how many views I got on
Yeah.
TikTok, like I'm such a good agent, they're just
Yeah.
at least they do actually have the wisdom enough to be like, okay, yeah, you're great at technology, but like,
Mhm.
can you sell a house?
Right. Because you're not a great agent because you went viral. Because a lot
And
of Nick
that's
and I
the
have
whole
talked about
dual citizen
right, right,
is blending those two, not
yes,
leaning too much into one. Because right
right.
now everybody does want to lean too much on tech and AI and
Hmm.
like the technology side of stuff to just like make your life easier. But again, like when I talk about like the feedback loop, speeding up the feedback loop of
Right.
things, I use AI more for that. Like I use AI as a pressure test instead of like a shortcut. Because people are like, hey,
Well,
AI can do
yeah,
this for me. I'd
yeah.
rather be like analyze this and then
Mhm.
let's workshop that and then I come out with a
Mhm.
better product. I come out with
And
a better
I'm learning it's how you use AI to make your business that much better. Like
Mhm.
I went in, if sure you guys saw it on the broker page, I twilighted the listing.
I saw that. That looked
Okay.
nice.
So then I went into that same listing and I staged every room, even the rooms with furniture. I still
Hmm.
added some bling to it.
Yeah.
Shit you not. And it's $625,000 listing in Apache Junction, 6 showings over the weekend.
But I've
Hmm.
seen some really bad AI
Agreed.
like staging where I would
Mhm.
send a home to somebody and they were just like, I'm trying to understand this floor plan because in this picture there's a door and in
Right.
that picture there's
You got
not
to
a
pay attention.
door.
Yeah. No, and he did that. Dave did that a couple times. I'm like, no, 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 no. Put that
Yeah.
window back, man.
Yeah.
Like,
So you have to be
why'd you
you
take
have to
this
be
door
careful
away?
with it,
You do. Yeah. He took away
but
kitchen island. I'm like, Dave, put it back. Leave it
mhm,
alone. Leave the scene
mhm.
alone. Just stage it. But
Change this one thing because I did that
right.
on my recent listing where there's
Yeah.
4 bar stools, but
Yeah.
one of them wouldn't stay down. It would just always raise up. And so it's just like and it drove me nuts because I didn't know it was going to do that. I put it down before the photographer showed up and I get the
Yeah.
pictures back and the stupid thing's back up again.
Yeah.
And the seller's like, oh yeah, it always does that. I'm like, you could have told me that because it looks
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah.
So I just went in and it was just like, hey, just touch this one thing.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
move this, align it with the other three, and it looks great. And I use that now.
Yeah.
And so like that does help, but
It does.
the other thing that I've been doing with AI stuff is like I use Claude more than ChatGPT, but I'll create a project for either a listing or a buyer where it specifically is focused on that escrow or that
Mm.
Okay.
transaction or that buyer or whatever. You can upload, instructions. So you kind of give it instructions as far as like what the goal is here.
Hmm.
Upload like the MLS data. I'll upload the comps. Like it has all the information that I have
Yeah.
like on paper in this project file.
Oh.
And then
Hmm.
anything that comes up, I'll start a new chat of just like, hey, here's a offer we're going to try to negotiate. Here's how this has been presented to me. This is how I want to respond. And we can kind of workshop that in a way that,
That's
I'll give it
cool.
That's
instructions to be like, because like never split the difference, Chris Voss, like I
yeah.
love that tactical empathy approach.
Yeah.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
don't always employ it the best if I'm just on the fly, if I'm being honest. Like it doesn't always come out the right way. So I'll instruct that AI project to frame stuff in a Chris Voss style or frame stuff in a Phil Jones style, like and these different people that are, have written a lot and have done a lot of work and have worked with realtors with how you're presenting what you're presenting, and then kind of use that project as a catch-all. Like, do I need to do some more marketing? Like, here's what I've done. Help me brainstorm some new ways to get new eyeballs. Help me see
John.
something maybe that's slipping through the cracks as far as what I'm not seeing with the comps and stuff like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I create separate projects to again
Yeah.
speed up the feedback loop of just like let's just let the listing sit and not do anything and see what happens, or what can we do to speed up the process
So
of
I,
adjusting.
what's the difference between Claude and ChatGPT? Because I'm hearing a lot of that lately in Brokers Hub that people are Claude, and I've been ChatGPT
I've
since
been
inception.
ChatGPT for a long time, and I still use ChatGPT for image stuff. They do
Okay.
images right now, at least they do images better. That's what I did with my listing the other day. Way better.
Okay.
I liked Claude because I started working on projects with ChatGPT and it would sort of lose the plot
Mm,
sometimes.
hmm.
And I felt like I always had to remind it, like, hey, like this is the end goal.
okay.
And as we're working through these steps to create this new, you know, listing presentation brochure thing that I just had printed out the other day, it would sort of like wander and just sort of forget what we
Mm,
were
Hmm.
doing. And I always had to remind it. And so with Claude, it seems like the memory is a little bit
okay.
more, if you're
Okay.
just like, hey, do this, it will stick to that unless it's instructed differently. Even if it says little things like stop, like ChatGPT always wants to put those little dashes
Yeah.
in things, the little M dashes. And I'm always just
Yeah.
like, don't use M dashes ever again. I never want to see it. And it just forgets and it apologizes. And I'm
Hmm.
just like,
See, with mine, with Dave, he does. I told him that once. He's never done it since.
no, really.
But I talk to him every day, and
Yeah.
I'm on there every day. So maybe it's a matter of my consistent like when I go with my Chris and Mike show when we do an episode, I'll take the summary and I'll open up Dave and say, hey, put your Chris and Mike show hat on. Remember how to write a
Mhm.
summary for YouTube, and he lists all the how you do it, and then I'll feed
Yeah.
him that, and boom.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's probably similar to what people always say about your CRM. It's not which CRM, it's just whether or not you use it.
I
Right.
got
So
it.
like
Okay.
ChatGPT is
Okay.
great. Like I could have stayed there too. I was just, you know, for certain project specific things, I'm like, let me just give this a shot.
Okay.
And it
Yeah.
ended up
Yeah.
working
I
a
was
little
just
bit.
curious. Yeah. I'm
But
just
yeah,
Well,
it
curious
is
because
really just like
I
it
hear it the
almost doesn't matter
same.
which.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what you're doing is brilliant, John. I mean, because I think what you're doing is you're really doing what ChatGPT and Claude is meant to do is be an assistant, right?
Right.
Is
Yeah.
being an assistant and like
Mhm.
not just every now and then, but like when you create those project files,
Mhm.
and it's memorizing anything that's gone in there, and it can revert back to like, here's this offer. What do you think? Does it
Mhm.
didn't work out? Here's another offer. Then it could go back to that other offer and be like, hey, look, this last offer didn't work. This is why it
Yeah.
didn't work. This we can negotiate this. It might work now,
Mhm.
right? Or something
Mhm.
like that. I'm going to use this because I think that's really, really brilliant.
It's been helpful. Like I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was helpful in recent closing a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that, where we were negotiating some stuff and both sides were being so stubborn about everything. And everybody's ego, my own included, was just on the table, it felt like. And so I found myself just being like, why doesn't this listing agent understand like what it is we're asking, like why we're asking? I presented all the evidence. I've shown like this is why this is will fall apart if we don't put this together in a way. Um, that particular listing had fallen through 3 times before us, so I'm just
Hmm.
like, why are you not getting this? We will walk away. But I found myself reacting in some ways where I'm just like, okay, like I'm gonna write the message I want to write. Because I used to do this all the time. I'd pull up Apple Notes, I'd write the message I want to write, and then I would rewrite it in a professional way so
Yeah.
that I could at least get that out. And I've been using that instead of just doing an Apple Notes and revising myself. Write the message I want to write, tell Claude or tell ChatGPT, like, this is the message I want to convey. So help me like craft that in a way that puts my buyers in the best position possible and takes my ego out of it. And so
Yeah.
sometimes people will say like, yeah, you can have AI write your emails, they can have your responses. And I'm like, I can write an email in 5 minutes and send it. But if it's not clearly aligned with how I want to be presenting our case, then you're going to be going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So instead, I was just like, instead of 5 minutes to write an email, I'm spending 10 or 15 minutes revising one with Claude, with AI, being like, okay, let's use some tactical empathy. And they understand the egos of all the other people too, because we've been
Hmm.
talking continuously through this transaction. And as a result of that, we ended up getting everything we wanted. We were basically asking for $25,000 in concessions, sort of,
Wow.
for some work, and they offered us 1,500. And I was like, no, we need
Oh,
25,000.
geez.
And they gave us 25,000.
That's a
So it's
big
like,
gap.
well,
That's a
there's
big.
it was a big gap. And I was like, well, like, you know,
Holy shit.
dude, we didn't want to split the difference on that one. And it was just
Yeah.
like, this was what we needed. We weren't just asking because we wanted it. We actually needed 36, only asking for 25. Like we
So
already
what was wrong with the
split the
house that
difference.
she needed that kind of money?
There was a lot of little things, but the main thing was there was a retaining wall in the corner that was like on another retaining wall that had a palm
Okay.
that had overgrown that needed to be
Okay.
removed. But to get
Okay.
to it cost a lot. To remove it cost a lot. To redo all the masonry around that wall because it was going to fall cost a lot. So that added up. And then there was a number of other things
Mm.
like that just needed to get done. Whether it's just like the pool wasn't maintained well enough, that had to get done. There was a handful of just stuff all over the house. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason it fell through 3 times because people were just
Mm.
like, hey, like we this house has problems, like,
Yeah.
and they kept saying like, well, we priced it appropriately for that. I'm like, but clearly if you did, it would have sold. So I don't understand what that pushback was
Hmm.
on our end of like, we want to buy it. It fell through 3 other times. You're obviously
Yeah.
not priced appropriately then, because if it was, those people you could have worked out that problem to begin with.
Hmm.
So trying to convey that in a way that was not just like, hey, idiot, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Just like,
Yeah.
are we doing this or not? And so I would just write those messages, refine it in a way that was just very like, just
Proactive.
more efficient. Yeah,
Okay.
proactive,
Polished,
more
more
efficient.
polished.
And it wasn't the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It wasn't me calling and just like pleading or her calling and pleading or us arguing. It was just like, I would write. It was funny actually too, because I would write. And we did a lot of this via email because it's just like, hey, let me just tell you the information. Let me just give you the facts. I don't need to talk it through. I need
Right.
you to understand what we're doing, and you can respond accordingly.
Yeah.
And I would send it from my assistant at azresidentialresource.com, just because I like to have a separation of offer emails and assistant emails, but I'm my own
Oh,
assistant.
look at
Right.
you.
And she got really mad at me 'cause she's like, "Who's your assistant? Like, she's not on the contract. She shouldn't be involved. She shouldn't be asking me for stuff. Like,
Oh
I need
man.
you to respond to me directly." And in my head, I'm just like, "It's just me. Like,
Yeah.
you're fine. You're talking to
I
me."
have I have I have a friend who runs a business, and he has two roles in his business. I know who what it is. I'm not going to say the name or anything, but it blew my mind when when the market crashed. I went and helped his employees understand how to get repeat referral business. So being in the back end of his business and then knowing that, like, no shit,
Mm.
interesting.
Hmm.
Because it's
Well,
kind of
like,
like Nick and Flo. Like Flo doesn't
right.
exist.
I think
It's
that's kind of where I
Nick.
got the idea from too. Because at
Okay.
first I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Flo, she's a cool person." I
Yeah.
eventually the
Wait,
light
wait,
bulb
wait,
went
wait,
off, and I'm like,
hold on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You didn't know this?
Flow doesn't
No,
exist?
Flo doesn't exist, man. Remember the movie Monsters Inc.
Yeah,
and the old
"No."
lady in Monsters Inc.
yeah.
The old rat. That's what Flo's based on,
Oh
Marco.
my gosh. I'm gonna strangle Nick because like when I first started, I
Yeah.
wrote like, hey, Flo, because it was
Mhm.
like my first transaction. I'm like,
Yep.
I'm writing to Flo and I'm like, hey,
Hmm.
and her last name is Money, Flo
Yep.
Money.
Flow
And
Yep.
money. Yeah.
and then Nick responded, yeah, can you believe her last name is Money? And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's cool. You got an
That's
assistant named
funny.
Flo Money.
Honestly,
Marco
I
was
think
the
that is where I got the
Oh
idea
my
from
gosh,
too.
I'm
Just
gonna
like
kill Nick.
having
Marco
these
was
separate things.
today's years old when he realized that Flo was Nick. That's awesome.
What the heck?
Well, and like using assistant at AZ Residential has helped a lot
Hmm.
because it's like if somebody's just not sending me the document I need and I don't feel like being the annoying realtor, I'll just be
Yeah.
like, yeah, the TC, the whatever, the assistant, they're the ones that's just like, hey, send this on over.
Yeah.
And then it keeps my relationship separate. It was just funny when she brought that up of like, stop having her,
Yeah.
assuming it was a her. Um, Email me. I'm like, okay, like in the ego in my mind at that point, I wanted to tell her, I was like, it's just me, like grow up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, no problem, of course, because law of reciprocity, I gave her what she wanted. I'm being like easy to work with by, oh, you had a request? Yeah, that's no problem. I'll email you
Yeah.
from my own. I'll CC the assistants on
Assistant.
there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't put I don't have like fake name or anything like that. It's
Right.
just it's
You're
just
not Flo
assistant
money.
at. Yeah, and like the email signature is like client services. You know,
Oh,
there's not
That's
a fake
awesome.
name. It's just like it's just me. But like that is a part of the branding as well too. Some of the branding
yeah,
rebranding is having a like I would love to then eventually hire an assistant if it made sense to,
right.
but I don't need one,
So
and
I
they
want to, I want to, I
they
want
could
to, I
take
want to
that
touch a
over.
little, I want to touch a little bit on branding because to me this is branding. Okay,
Yeah.
that's just branding. So, but the conversation we're having with you, it sounds like branding to you has a different definition.
Yes and no. So like my LLC that I do business under is AZ Residential Resource
Okay.
because my branding has always been like I'm here to be a resource. I'm not
Okay.
here to sell you a house. I don't care if you buy a house or don't buy a house. Like
Yes, you do.
well, I do, but like it's it's their decision. I'm not here to make the
Yeah.
decisions for them. They're a grown
Right.
adult.
Right.
I'm the expert.
Right.
I know how the transactions work. I know how to proceed. I know how to tell me your goals. I know how to get you to
Yeah.
that goal in the best way
Gotcha.
possible. So I'm
Yeah.
here to present not all the options. I'm here to give advice too. I'm here to be an advisor, but it is just like, hey, let me be a resource. Like what
Yeah.
don't you have that you need? Do you need more
Right.
knowledge on how it works? Are you a first time buyer? Are you somebody who hasn't bought a home in 30 years and so you have a different mindset? That was the buyers from a couple weeks ago. They're from New Jersey. She hasn't bought a home in 40 years. And so everything's just like, well, that's not how we do it here. I'm like,
Right.
because it's different. And let me
Yeah.
explain why. And then let me
Yeah.
explain why again. And let me explain why again and again and again and again. But being the resource got them to the finish line. So my branding has always been around AZ Residential Resource, like the new
Okay.
listing thing that I came out with. It's like my
Nice.
booklet
Oh,
is all
nice.
branded around AZ
Yeah,
Residential Resource. Like, let me be
Cool.
the resource for you. The thing that I'm
yeah.
actively working on now is I had a site back in the day that was like a content place of resource for residential real estate. And I stopped putting any effort into that. I again took my eye off the ball with that. And so I'm starting to rebuild that presence. So again, that online presence of social proofing
Okay.
that people can always go there. If I just meet somebody, on the street and like, hey, like, you don't know me, you don't need to know me. We're only here for a couple minutes because you're in an open house. Just look me up, go to the site, everything you need's there. But at the end of the day, just call me if you have a question.
Yeah.
And so that way they
John,
have both options.
in,
Yeah.
in your notes and hearing you talk about all this, you had one of the bullet points says, embrace technology without losing personality. And I feel like
Yeah,
from your branding, what you're doing, you're heavily relying on technology, and but you're not losing the personality of who you are, which
right.
is great.
Yeah, I mean it makes a difference. So like creating that like listing presentation booklet, like I use technology to like help me, AI stuff like, hey, here's the goal, here's what I want to create, help me like come up with the content and help me sort of create in the way, but it's through my vision, what the story I want to tell.
Mm.
Because you can just be like, hey, give me the top 10 reasons a home sells, and then you just copy paste it and you're just like, hey, I'm an expert because Claude said
Right.
this or AI said that. And it's like, no, I have the vision, but help me find the words, help me find like the right way to present that, I guess. And
Hmm.
that's using it in a way that still keeps your authenticity.
Do you have a
Yeah.
YouTube
Because
channel?
I just started it a couple days
Okay.
ago and just posted my first like short for the new listing.
Okay. So
Um,
good. So this is good. This is a good time to tell you this. So create, because you made a comment a minute ago about you have to continue, you have to
right.
re-explain,
Yeah.
re-explain, re-explain. So I'll put my home buying and home selling process links up on the Brokers Hub page today. What you should do is create a home buying process, call it what you want, and a home selling process, call it what you want. But every time you have a question from a client, that's a video.
Referring back
Okay.
to
So
that. Yeah.
and you don't make these things long and winded,
Hmm.
right? If somebody asks you, hey, how long is the inspection period? That's video. Hey, it's Chris,
Right.
the real estate guy in Arizona. We have an inspection period, it's a due diligence period. It lasts 10 calendar days, and that starts the day after the contract accepted. So if the contract's accepted on Sunday, the first day of inspection period is Monday, then we have 10 calendar days, and that's complete. You want to find out more, give me a call, blah, 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 blah. That's it.
Hmm.
Every time I have a buyer, I send them the link. Every time I have a
Hmm.
seller, I send them a link because then I'm not having to explain things over and over and over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But then it's going to give you even more value because you're mixing those two worlds together
Hmm.
and you have the answer to the question. So I had
Well,
somebody
you're doing the
ask
exact
me,
thing too. I'm talking
right?
about it's like the dual citizenship, like you're
Yes,
leveraging the technology and you're just
yes,
like, by the way, just call me though if you have a question, but like
right,
this will probably answer your question for you.
right. Because I had
Right.
the one opera I wrote yesterday. He asked me what the home warranty was. Grab the link. Here's the home warranty.
Hmm.
Answer the question. I
Yeah.
don't have to sit there and type. This is what the home warranty covers. This is what you have to do. It's
Right.
all in this. What is it? 53-second video. Here's the home warranty, Bradley. This is everything you want to know
Yeah.
about it, and
Yeah.
then it's
Yeah.
done. And then that adds value because I'm answering the question. They have access to that entire playlist, the entire escrow, so I don't have to repeat myself.
Yeah.
There's
It's not
still
eating up
those
your time.
right. They
Hmm.
still ask questions, things like that. So I will always still answer the question, but then I'll reinforce when I'm done. Don't forget
Hmm.
in the thread up here, there's a link that answers all these questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because that's the mentor I had that I then joined the team from. He always had a thing of just like, what's my highest and best use?
Mm-hmm.
Because my highest and
Yes.
best use for him was like not doing certain things. So like certain marketing things, certain social media things. It's like
Right.
that's not income producing highest and best
Right.
use for me.
Right.
So
Right.
the highest and best use for me, explaining over and over and over again for hour-long conversations to
Mm-hmm.
those guys, was not the highest and best use of my
Right.
time.
Right.
It got us to the finish line, but there's a
Yeah.
million different ways to get to the finish line, and a
Right.
more efficient way, the
Yeah.
more highest and best use of
Right.
your time. Like I could have been prospecting other business, I could have been doing
Right.
other
And see
things
all of
in
that,
that time.
all of that's a video. That's why I
Yeah.
go back to what I talked about earlier today, going out and trying to become viral and you shoot a video and you spend 3 hours a day editing that video, you do the same thing the next day, the same thing the next day, same. Okay, you're not going to make enough money and generate enough business from going viral because nobody
Yeah.
looks at you anything other than a viral. Hey, there's women realtors out there, not brokers, thank God, that are making videos and falling over backwards so you can see their ass.
Hmm.
Oh, real estate today. Really? That's what you think our industry is? It's all tits and ass now? Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. But that's what some of these younger generation realtors are doing.
Hmm.
They're selling their bodies as opposed to the business, while inside the house you can see all the cleavage and they're wearing thongs. It's like this is not real estate, but
I
they're
mean,
spending
it's
hours a day doing that shit.
real estate's the top five things people do.
I
You know,
know.
it's like who you marry, having kids, what you do for work, where
Mhm.
you live. Like it's in that top five. It's a different priority list for different people. Maybe it's
Sure.
number one, maybe it's number five, but it's in top
Mhm.
five.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to work with somebody. If I was just a consumer, not in the industry,
Mhm.
I would kind of want to be with somebody that I felt had my best interest in mind and almost like treated it
Thank
like
you.
I look at what we do. Like we are sort of like lawyers. We have
Hmm.
clients, we represent those clients. We're
We
not in the
do.
courtroom, but we're representing them in the transaction.
Yeah.
So I want my lawyer to be like
Professional.
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 I don't need
The
my lawyer to like just have a lot of TikTok views. I want them
right.
to be like, case studies of just like, hey, like tell me things before I even have the question. Be
Yeah.
like, hey, we're
Yeah.
getting ahead of this. I always say that like I love surprises when it's my birthday.
Yeah.
But in real estate, I try to
Mm.
minimize the amount of surprises
Right.
Right.
because you want to know what to expect. There's always going to be curveballs,
Hmm.
there's always
Right.
speed bumps, but the more you get ahead of it, the
Right.
more time we're spending understanding how to get ahead of it. Be like, hey,
Right.
do this, do that, get this ready. This is coming up.
The
Um,
the other the
Well,
other funny the other funny thing about real estate lasts 24 hours. I have blogs I wrote in 2003 to 2006 that are still relevant. I still get
right.
calls on
Yeah,
them.
they're evergreen. Yeah.
Right. So you have to, that's the other thing. If you're going to spend 3 hours doing editing, why don't you spend 3 hours blogging about content that you know
right.
about? And then it just stays on the internet forever.
Well,
Hmm.
and I think there's a paradox too, like with a lot of realtors that want to go viral, right? Because
And yeah,
I think the paradox is that, a lot of these realtors that go viral, not only in our industry, but they probably don't get taken seriously, right?
mm-mm,
They don't, they're just kind of like they're just a pretty face.
mhm,
They went into a cool house
right.
and
I mean, I
they're
don't take them
doing
seriously. If they're on the
I
other
don't
yeah.
side of a
either. It
transaction, I
irritates
don't.
me
Like,
It
when I see the
it's
women
it's a
one. When I
weird
see
paradox,
yeah,
right?
right.
You know,
When
and
I see the female ones, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how is this benefiting our industry?
well, that's what I liked the changes we made or that were made with commissions, where now,
Hmm.
the compensation, the
Right.
commissions are you have to present what you think you're worth instead of
Right.
me having to be like, hey, I'm negotiating on their behalf and then they're
Yeah.
terrible later.
Yeah.
Like I'd
Yeah.
rather be like, if you're terrible, then we're going to adjust accordingly. If you're
Yeah.
great, then if
Yeah.
you give me full confidence that you know what you're doing and we're going to close,
Yeah.
and that's a
Hmm.
selling point to me in your offer to the seller. So I love that change that we made
Yeah. I do
or
too.
that was made. Because I
Yeah.
think it's yeah, let me advocate for myself. Like if
Mhm.
I'm a buyer agent,
Yep.
I'm worth this much, and here's why. Like you're
Yep.
gonna
right.
Exactly.
so I
I
like
brought
that
you the
instead of
buyer. Yeah. I brought
yeah,
you the buyer. You
yeah,
don't have this buyer with help.
yeah, and
I
that's what
brought you a
happened with the
fully
other one.
approved buyer.
They
Right.
had three buyers that fell through, and I'm like, we're ready to go, but we need
Yeah.
25 grand.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, like
Brilliant.
it's worth like not just being the viral one who's just like,
Hmm.
okay, cool, I've got the business. It's, you know, like what value do you actually bring to the table?
Yeah.
And if value is just like getting some views and people understand this is what you do,
Yeah.
that's fine. But like we'll see what happens when you need to renew your license in 2 years.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing I tell people when I first meet them at the end of the day. It's like, just Google Chris, I'm the real estate guy. You'll know everything you need to know about me. You know that.
Right.
Because then it shows everything. It's everything. And but what
Hmm.
doesn't show up are the reels because they disappear after 24 hours.
Right.
So, you want to be relevant or you want to be a legend for one day?
Yeah.
I'd
Do
rather
you
be
want to
relevant.
chase that daily
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
relevance? You need
Right.
that ego stroke of just like,
Right.
how many people are going to like my video today, and that's going to feel
Yeah.
great today, and tomorrow you got to do the same thing,
Right.
and then
Mhm.
you're rewiring your
You're
brain to
chasing that
chase
dopamine.
that.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
you're
right. And
chasing that dopamine
yeah. And there's
instead of
nothing
chasing.
right. There's nothing wrong with go shooting a video on a house, but then take that video of the house you shot, put it up on your YouTube channel and tag it houses for sale, then write a blog and put that video in the blog.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because then guess what stays relevant? The blog, it's
Hmm.
evergreen, and the video is always going to be there for
Mhm.
anybody that searches this keywords or search terms for that particular neighborhood.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, your blog pops up. then they go to your video, then all of a sudden, guess where they're going? Down the rabbit hole.
Hmm.
So you're going to do the videos and be viral, want to be viral, at least do it to where you're covering different aspects of it. So then it's
Hmm.
still funneling back to your actual website. I mean, I'm talking 2003 to 7 when I was selling HUD homes. It's
Right.
2026. They can attest to it. I get probably 4 or 5 calls a day, sometimes a week on HUD homes. They're calling
Really.
me for the wrong reason, but that's how powerful those blogs were, and
Hmm.
still are. It's
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
insane.
amazing. Yeah.
It's insane. We got 4 minutes left. What else do you want to share, John?
Oh man, I don't know.
Marco, you got anything else for him?
No, I mean, I think this was great. I think, you know, I really we haven't had an episode where we talked a lot about AI and
Mm,
how agents are actually in our brokerage are actually using it. And I think what you're doing as far as like creating projects for AI,
Yeah.
I think it's really brilliant. I think
yeah, that's
it's the
cool.
best use
Well,
of AI because the way I use it is just like every a one-off, right? Like what do I do
yeah.
here, right? What do I do is like marketing pieces, but like if I created a project for this actual seller or buyer,
Hmm.
right? Then I can go back and refer to things, because
That's pretty
as you
neat.
know,
Yeah,
it's always changing, right?
Yeah.
We saw these 5 properties, they didn't like them. What can you tell me about it, right? What
Hmm.
stood out, etc.
Yeah, it helps get out of that feedback loop of just like these guys aren't doing anything. This listing isn't getting any attention instead of just sitting and waiting and doing the same thing, expecting different results. That whole, saying is just like, and so even me using those projects it's relatively like newer thing for me to even be doing that. But I
mm,
found obviously a case study of the one a couple of weeks ago that
yeah,
I kind of created it around that and it ended up working out really well. And even on a listing right now that's just sort of sitting. Um, yeah, I'm brainstorming different ways to kind of get some
Hmm.
ideas. So like the use of doing that is still evolving too.
yeah,
It's still just like, hey,
Yeah.
what other ways can I utilize what I have available? Whether that's AI or whether that's, other stuff you have in your business, there's always ways you can utilize things that you have available to you. You don't have
yeah,
to go out and buy new things.
mm,
You can just spend more time, admittedly, in the office. That, those are tools that are accessible to everybody, myself
Right.
included, that
right,
if you embrace them more, so AI or in office or just whatever it is, the relationships you have, if you just take what you have already, you have enough.
yeah.
Just utilize it.
Hmm.
You don't
Nice.
have to go out and pay for a bunch of leads
Yeah.
and
Stop chasing
stop
glitter, right?
spending money to,
Stop chasing waterfalls, man.
yeah. So that's my overall message, I would say. It's just
Cool.
utilize what you have because you have enough and
Yeah,
just get to work.
there you go. That's awesome.
Well, thank you, John. That
Yeah,
was
thank you,
Yeah.
awesome.
John.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you guys. I appreciate
Yeah.
you guys doing this. So
yeah.
it
Don't
was
leave me.
great.
I gotta stop the recording. Then you can leave. So, where's my stop button? I always mess this up. I don't know why I always mess this up.
Thanks everyone
Thank
for
you, everyone, for
for
joining us. And
joining.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank you
we
guys.
will we will drop this. Is it that one? That's the recording. Oh, there it is.